So I've been looking for a new truck, and the search is getting a little odd. I'm over here in North Sioux City today. My destination is right there because I need things and stuff. So I was posed a question the other day on what I'm looking for and kind of the process on what I'm doing looking for a truck. And I was going to do a video on, why resale is important, but I'll type that. I'll fill that in here. I think I can do that real quick. But the whole process of why I'm so my process seems ridiculous, but there's a reason for it, and the salesmen don't like it, but so let's get into it. So now, while it might seem that I'm brand loyal, I'm really not. But when it comes to resale, the first thing I ask is, will the truck hold its value? And because eventually I will sell it, you are potentially, if you're buying a used truck, you're the second to third owner of it, and it's got quite a few miles on it. But you also have to understand what part of the country you're going to be operating in, where you're planning on selling that truck, and what people are willing to pay for particular trucks in your area. That's why I don't want a condo. If I was doing a lot of big city stuff like that, it wouldn't be a problem. I could probably sell it. Now, condos, especially Freightliner condos, will never hold their value. They are a one-owner truck. Don't get me wrong, they're great. They have a lot of potential in them. They're great trucks, good drivetrains and all that. But the trucks just fall apart. They're just cheaply built. They're pretty much a one and done, which is kind of starting to be par for the course these days. But there's a reason I've stuck to these narrow cab Peterbilts and mid-roofs, and the reason is not because I'm a fan. Well, I do like them, but it's not what you think. Where I live, most of these trucks, the third and fourth owners are farmers and private guys using them to haul stuff, and guys that turn them into day cabs. If you can get one that's not integrated, like mine, and that has a removable sleeper, it'll go a lot faster because guys will turn these into day cabs. And I wouldn't be surprised if in 3 to 4 years my truck isn't a day cab. But that's what they want. They don't want condos. They need things that fit into elevators. In fact, when I sell this one here, the first thing that guy's doing is tearing off the air dam up top because it's too tall for what he's doing. These are things you have to consider. How are you going to market your truck? A condo, even with the trade-in, might get me 10 to 11. This will get me 5 to 10,000 more, and if I sell it outright, it's going to get me around 40,000. This is why when I talk about resale, this is long-term thinking. This is down the road. If something was to happen, how easy is it going to be for you to get rid of that truck? Now, here's the thing. If you buy an integrated truck that's a mid-roof, it's still kind of a win. They turn those into day cabs. It's much more expensive. With this, it's as easy. They pop the sleeper off. They slam a lid on the back, and we used to, in my last job, they used to turn the old flatbed trucks into day cabs. One guy could do it in a week. I mean, it's really easy. If you had 2 or 3 guys doing it, you could slam one out every 3 to 4 days. It's pretty easy to do, and that's why they like them. But you also have, like I said, you have to consider the area you're in and the market and all that. But while you need to have a little long-term thinking, it's just, I knew this truck would get me $10,000 to $12,000 more on the open market than a condo of the same age, especially a Freightliner. Now, like I said, I'm not brand loyal, but I'm just partial to the narrow cabs, and I like the sleepers in these, and I just like the way they're set up. It's what I'm used to, and I'm comfortable in it. I've driven wide cab trucks. They're fine. And I'm actually looking at a 680 right now. I'm thinking I might spend a little extra money if it turns out to be a good truck. A 2022, so we'll see. The price is right. The miles is very low. And the previous owner, the boss, bought it for a guy who was leasing it from him, and the guy just ditched the truck and took off. Apparently, that's the story. Low miles, all that. I'm not afraid of that. But so now, one of the other things I look for when I'm looking at buying a truck is parts availability. So parts availability and performance is one of those things that you really have to consider. You know, why don't I buy an automatic transmission? Automatic transmissions now have come so far from the auto shifts of 20 years ago. If you saw an auto shift truck, you literally just, you didn't even take a double take. You just literally averted your eyes and ran the other way. Here's the problem. If I had a fleet of trucks and I was hiring drivers, I would buy auto shifts. I'd buy the new automatics. They're getting very good mileage with the Cummins engine and all that. They're phenomenal. But right now, PACCAR has been pushing their engine in Kenworth and Peterbilt. They've been pushing it hard, and with 12-speed automatics. And as a single owner without a fleet, that doesn't make sense to me, because PACCAR takes their own filters, they take their own stuff like that, and parts availability is hard. I can go anywhere in the country. If it has a big C on the building, whether it's a Freightliner, Western Star, Mack, Volvo, and if it's got the big Cummins C on it, I can get my truck fixed there, engine-wise and whatnot, if it's a Cummins system. You can't do that. If you get PACCAR, you have to go to a particular PACCAR place. You can't get that done at a Freightliner. So just the ease of maintenance is one of those things that I look for too. But the automatic transmission, why I stay with a manual, is because these are finicky. I haven't really seen the Kenworths do this, but the Freightliners have been horrible. It's just, you pop an ABS code, won't shift. Pop this code, won't shift. I've seen them dead in intersections because the actuators go out and the guy's sitting there in a turn lane for an hour and a half and have to get a tow. You can't get pull started. You can't get, there's so many things that we take for granted with a stick shift that in reality would be a tow situation. If you think this truck's been on a hook a lot, try that. Your starter goes out, you're not pull starting it automatic. You're getting towed. You're getting a starter put in a parking lot. You have one of these codes that falls out, won't let you shift, you're getting a tow, you're going. I mean, for just time-wise and maintenance-wise, it makes zero sense for me to get an automatic, despite the fact that I do like their performance and all that. And the PACCAR automatics, ones they're putting in there, in the Kenworths and Peterbilts, seem to be doing a lot better than they did. But at the same time, I have to look at the long term as well. And truthfully, selling this where I live, I'll sell a manual. Right now up there, they can't keep the Cummins and the manuals on the lot. I could buy a PACCAR with an automatic tomorrow. And have my choice of anything. But it just doesn't work for me because of, ease of maintenance and all that. I'm the one paying the bills, and I'm just a one truck situation. So let's move on to the next thing. One of the things that really ticked me off about that 579 was that they were wanting a deposit. I get that. If I decide I want the truck, a deposit is necessary. I'm examining the truck. I need to know things about the truck. Well, what's the deposit? Because I was thinking about just going ahead and doing it, running it all. And if it came back, boom, I was going to take the truck. I can afford to lose $300-400 bucks. They wanted $4,000 for a deposit. And I looked at that guy and I said, that's BS. I said, that's almost extortion. Because if you put down a $4,000 non-refundable deposit and you decide the truck's not worth it, you're out that money. So that's basically, you're being blackmailed into buying a truck because you can't afford to lose that. I can't afford to lose that. So if the truck's right, it'll be there. Because I have to do my due diligence. Now, I've said before, I'm more comfortable buying a truck with 1 million miles than I am 500,000. Because at 1 million miles, everything that's going to fail has failed. And you get a good price. But let's be realistic here. Nobody really, at 1 million miles, unless you've dumped a massive amount of money like I've dumped into this truck, you're kind of, you can go either way on that. So what I end up doing is I want to see the maintenance history, and I want to see I need to see the maintenance history, and I want to have the ECM downloaded and sent to me. I'll show you what that looks like, and then I'll show you what I look for in that, because it's kind of interesting to see the history of your truck. So this right here is just kind of a partial history, and you can slow down and pause it and look at it, but shows you just basically all the maintenance and things and stuff that's been done. And this is actually really important because you need to know what's been fixed, what hasn't, and what kind of maintenance has been done. This will tell you a lot. Now, this maintenance history was from my old truck, or this truck here, when I was looking to buy it. You'll see it had an in-frame done on it. It was a recall engine. So they did that while it was still under warranty, and you know, I got 700 and some thousand miles out of that. I don't necessarily like engines that have been broke apart, but I'll explain that later. But so the next one is the ECM download, and this was critical. This is what I'm talking about. Now, this is the ECM download from this truck when I bought it in the fall of 2018. This will give you the status and health and all the statistics on this truck. And if you don't know how to read it, that's fine. You know, you can have friends read it, take it to a Cummings guy, have your mechanic look at it. But this page right here that we'll go over in a minute, this is the most important page as a driver you need to look at. Now, to give you a little bit of a warm-up on this, what this page is it tells you your burn temps, your burn pressures, your inlet, your outlet, what your knock sensors are doing, and all that. Excuse me. And this is very important, because if there's too big of a gap between temperatures, or your burn pressures are too high, or you know, it can be a precursor. It can show you what you're in for. Well, yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm having a hard time finding words today. Words, they're fun. It shows you the health of your engine. There we go. I knew I'd get there. And any more of these emission systems, you need to know what engine you're dealing with and the hours between burns of what's standard, because these new X15s, they burn like every 100 hours now. I mean, it's amazing. My first truck, my red one that I had before this truck, that burned every 10 to 12 hours, and that was normal. You get a burn once a day. This truck here, every 20 to 40 hours. And it's been progressively getting better as time goes on. So this right here will tell you the health. So if you know the engine is only supposed to realistically burn every, you know, 80 to 100 hours, and it's burning every 10 hours, you have a very serious problem. So these are things you need to figure out. So let me pull this sheet up here, and I'll show you what I'm looking at, and we'll go over this, and I'll give you a better idea of what you're looking at. So what we're looking at here is the last page. Now we zoom in, and you have your ECM time key. This is the time. These are the newest burn pressures from newest to oldest, the last 10. And so these are all good. Now, these are the like you said, the starting diesel oxidized by the catalyst intake temperature, the maximum diesel particulate filter intake temperature, and the maximum diesel particulate outlet temperature. These need to be on course, which this will show you if it's flowing properly. These are all within spec. If you look at these temps, they're all really good. Now, the maximum diesel particulate filter differential pressure, this is what I was talking about. These are really low for the most part. Now, you got the 2.3 here, but it goes back down. So what that probably was just a load of bad fuel or whatever. I've had that happen with fuel. And this right here, though, is probably the most important page on this whole. It tells you the soot conditions, the outlet temperature conditions. I mean, it really does tell you the health of the engine. And these days, with emission systems being so important, this page is vitally important. Now, the first thing people are going to ask me, well, I'll just delete it. Listen, don't. If you're not out, if you don't have a mechanic you take it to all the time and a guy you trust and all that, if you're out doing road stuff like I'm doing, don't even entertain it. You're going to have such a hard time finding guys to work on it, much less reputable guys to work on it. And truthfully, if you don't know the guy who does the delete, this is the other problem, is I've seen bad deletes really wreck a lot of dreams. I mean, it's just, and the way the federal government's coming down on these guys doing these shops and stuff like that, this isn't a joke anymore. I'm not against deleting a truck. I think done properly, which is hard to find, I think the trucks burn cleaner and run better, honestly, and get better mileage. But that's just me. What do I know? I'm just a truck driver. But these new trucks, they've really come a long ways since I got my first pre-production emissions truck in 2006. From the first 06 that I saw with an emission system on to now, the stuff they're coming out with now, it's like night and day. And I'm not afraid of them anymore like I used to be. They really are perfecting a lot of stuff. But when it comes to the health of the engine, like with these things that I was going over, like temperatures and whatnot, they will tell you if the filter's cracked, if the filter's clogged. If you got a newer truck and it's burning every 8 to 10 hours, that will tell you that you've either got a broken filter, a bad filter, but most likely it's trying to burn out antifreeze and it's trying to burn out oil. Your filter's clogging up. And if your filter's clogging up that badly, there's a reason. And it's usually very serious. Now, let's talk about that when it jumped up to a 2 on that. I'll tell you a story about that, and it's nothing to freak out about. Now, what a lot of people don't seem to realize or don't think is that your fuel filters are part of your emission system. Your oil is also part of your emission system. These are designed to, that's why, like with this truck, it's designed to run with a 7-micron filter. People think that's nuts. No, that's what it's designed to do. A 7-micron filter, I've never had a problem with this. And guys want to put 25 and 30 in it, which, realistically, if the cops really wanted to be horrible about it, they could be like, hey, that's an illegal filter. It could get that petty, but let's not split hairs, and I'm not going to give them any ideas. But also, part of the reason your oil turns black so quickly is because your crankcase is venting through the engine, and that's why your oil turns black and sooty so quickly, just because of that. That's why back before emission systems, your oil stayed cleaner. Now, you still wanted to change them out every 15,000 miles, so but so what you have here now is you got clean fuel and clean oil. And what I discovered with my last truck was that if I changed the filters out every 10,000 and changed the oil out every 20, my burn pressures are low. And there for a while when I first got my truck, I was so curious about it. I was getting it downloaded every 2 weeks. So I'd have overlapping, and I was tracking where I was fueling, And this is why I tell you guys that certain places I've noticed had cleaner fuel. There's a the worst fuel I ever got at the yard was at the yard there in Fort Dodge. Yeah, let's not talk about that horrid story that got me kicked out of the shop permanently. What ended up happening with that was I was running 1.2.08 to 1.2, which is really good for that truck. Well, I topped it off there at the yard, and it went to a 5.4 like that. It's nothing to freak out about. Now, don't get me wrong, that means it's clogged. And so I ran all of that fuel out, and then I went back, and that was the last time I ever fueled at the yard. The very last time. So then over the next 10 burns, it went from a 5.4 to a 3.7 to 2.5, and it eventually got down to a 1.1, 0.08 off in there. It had to burn all that out. But I had to change my filters, and I also had to keep running cleaner fuel in there, and I did run some cleaner through it. That's one of the things that if I know I'm going to go in for service, I'll dump a bottle of meter cleaner into the tanks, and it'll clean the tanks out and basically flush all that stuff out, change out your filters, and you're fine. So a lot of times that these clogs and these things that are people are saying it's a clogged filter. It's not a clogged filter, it's bad fuel. It's a clogged fuel filter. So if you get a truck and it's running in the 2s and 3s, before you go nuts, run a bunch of cleaner through it, put the proper filter in it, and get the cleanest fuel you can find, and I guarantee the next time you'll watch it go down. Now, if it's spiking and your inlet temperatures are all over the board, that's something completely different, and you'll need a trained mechanic for that. So, just something to think about. So this is why I've talked about building a relationship with your truck. If you understand the truck and understand the system, you'll realize that a lot of it is not as serious as you think, and you'll be able to troubleshoot a lot more efficiently. My smart nav, before it died, would tell me the codes and all that, and I didn't have a problem. Now, on the screen up front, it'll tell me what I need to. Like the other day, I was pulling fuses, and I popped an SCR code without turning the truck on. If you do that, you have to go to a shop and get that erased. So don't screw with your fuse box if you don't have to. But it's important sometimes to take a step back and really analyze the data. And this is what I've been doing when I look at trucks. It's just, you have to understand the system. And it's important to be familiar. And that's why I always get the ECM download. I know we spent a lot of time on this, but the emission system is one of those things on these trucks that you're going to spend a lot of money on. And it's important to spend the money in the right place. And it's important to know when and where to spend the money. I mean, if you just go through and slam a whole new one on, which everybody wants to do, we're talking from the turbo back, you're talking 25. You don't need to do that. Which brings me up to something else you might want to check. Your turbo health is important. If you buy a truck and it's got 650, 700,000 miles on the original turbo, you're going to do a turbo. You're going to do one. And depending on what you get, if you get a Detroit 60 or an ISX or something, or an X15, you're going to be between $6 and $8 grand. I mean, if you really know where you're going, you can find them for $3 to $4 if through a right company and all that. But you know, realistically, you're going to be now. That's not a deal breaker. To realize that. But if you go and you're looking at a truck and the guy's not around, and you pull the discharge pipe off the turbo off the top and look in there, if it's coated in oil, the turbo's shot. The turbo's shot. Now, I don't know too many people that are going to let you really going to let you pull the pipe off, but you could find a way. But that's the thing. These trucks are gambles. You might be in for a rear end, you might be, And here's the thing. Don't be afraid of the truck. If you like the truck, but the health, it doesn't look good, don't be afraid to walk away. There's a whole row of trucks here, and you'll find something you like. So you really have to sit there and evaluate just so many things. Like if the seat's shut, there's a lot of things in here that can be negotiated. Dealers, not so much, but like, say like the seats are completely tore up and all that, but he still wants a decent price for the truck, work him into the price. You know what, I'll give you that price, but you're going to replace both seats. Well, we're replacing drivers. No, you're going to replace both, because when this one wears out, I'm swapping it with that one. You know, things like that. There's a lot of bargaining tools out there, and dealers will bargain to a point. So I talked to a friend of mine the other day about that Cummins Encore warranty. It's okay. He says there's a lot of things in there that aren't covered on a second owner, a lot of good faith stuff. So that's something you need to talk to a Cummins representative about. You know, if you buy the aftermarket Encore warranty, what it covers, what it doesn't. As a second owner, if there's any warranty or Encore and all that, a lot of times with the first time buyer, there's a good faith warranty being, you know, this, that, and the other thing. There's most of the time on second owners, the warranty, the good faith part of it does not. If it doesn't cover, if it's not under warranty, they're not going to cover it. They're not even going to split the cost with you because you are the second owner. These are things to consider. But now we have to get down to just the nitty-gritty. What are you willing to pay? Well, someone's fixing to have a discussion. I've never really been a fan of those discussions. So, ultimately, guys, it comes down to price. I mean, what's your budget? Now, don't be afraid. One of the things that me and my buddy, we talk about this at length, was how back in the day, people tried to convince us that we couldn't do this without them. Guys, if you got good credit, or even remotely decent credit, you can do it. Don't get me wrong, for your first truck, your interest rate might be a little high, but it's going to be a little high everywhere. But at the same time, it's still cheaper than leasing a truck. How do I know? I got guys that lease, I got guys that buy. I had a buddy of mine, he bought a truck at 17% because it was his first truck and he had such a small down payment, but you know what? Paid it off in 3 years and he was still $400 a week cheaper than the lease guys. Something to think about. So a lot of the prices are all over the board right now because the truck market's starting to crash. It's starting to get flooded. Not with a lot of desirable stuff because guys are holding on to things that hold their value. But the market is starting to cool now, and it is starting to be more of a buyer's market now. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. I did look at a truck the other day. I thought it was a little high. It was a very nice 2019 389. I'm not opposed to a hood. I like a hood. So this is where a little bit of long-term planning, and we kind of circle around, comes into it. So this next truck will be my third truck. And like every truck driver, this will probably be my last truck. All right, you can stop laughing now. But I kind of came to a understanding about trucks years ago. I said, you get your first truck, you get your nice truck, you get your next truck. And your next truck can be anything. I could show up in a Freightliner Cascadia. I looked at some very nice ones over there at the Kansas Truck Center. Actually, some of them were beautiful, but they didn't have the manual. And I've already covered that. But there were some very, very, very nice trucks, and the prices are falling. I can buy a 2-year-old Cascadia for $50,000 with under 500,000 miles. So the prices are falling everywhere, and I was looking at this 389, and they wanted 160 for it. And I said, that's high. You know, what's my budget? Well, I was basing my budget on the cash that's available. And then I got to thinking, you know what? I've been doing this a while. I'm going to be doing this a while longer. I should probably just spend the money to get what I want, because truthfully, there's no point in buying a truck and driving a truck for the next 2 to 3 years and paying on a truck that you hate. Guys, that's what we did with our first truck. That's what we did. You know, our second truck was our nice truck, we thought. And now you're getting a little more mellow in your older age, and you're starting to be like, you know, I want a nice truck, but I want a comfortable truck. And truthfully, don't be afraid to spend a little extra. Now, don't get me wrong, the price of the truck should reflect the market. He wanted about $20,000 more than I thought that $389 was worth. But you know what? With enough cash down and all that, if you can strike a good deal, why not? You're going to be out here doing this, and you're going to be living in this. We're going to be spending a lot of time in this truck. Spend the money and get something that you're going to like and be comfortable with. Now, don't get me wrong, your insurance will go up a little bit. You'll be making payments again. But you know what? If you're in a good place and you're comfortable and you're making money, it's not a bad thing. You know, it's really not a bad thing. Don't be afraid of it. And remember this, guys, like I said earlier, one of the big things I had a problem with my last company was everything they did was concentrated on keeping me in one spot and convincing me that I couldn't do it without them. If I had known how to be independent earlier, I would have done this 10 years ago. Well, actually 15 years ago now. And that's one thing that me and my buddy Lloyd, we're kind of upset about. Because we were convinced by people who didn't have our best interest in mind that you couldn't do this without them. And him and I both said the same thing almost simultaneously. He said, you know, if I had known how easy it was to get a truck, he says, I would have done this 10 years ago. And he's been an owner-operator 8 years, and I've been 7. So he told me that if we'd done that, it would have been 15, 16 years as an owner-operator. You know, don't be afraid to chase it, guys. If this is a dream of yours, do your planning. You know, I gave you a few little tidbits here and there on what to look for, especially with these emission systems. If you got a bad feeling, even if the truck's beautiful, if you got a bad feeling, now indecision isn't a bad feeling. If you got to sleep on it, if you find the right truck, you'll know, man. It's just like anything else. You don't have to be impulsive, but don't let the salesman pressure you into anything you're not sure about, because the last thing you want is to be stuck in a truck you hate. So just keep that in mind, guys, and happy hunting. And that's kind of my process for looking for a truck. I mean, I look for other things that I personally like I like a fridge and storage and stuff like that, but that's all secondary to the Cummings, the manual, and you know, just the maintenance, upkeep, and the other stuff, because at the end of the day, you're going to be stuck with this truck for several years. I never expected to put an engine in this, but I did. So, you know, you just have to really have a little foresight, make a plan, and go for it, guys, because life is short, and life is short, and I may make a video on that one day too. So we're only here for a little while, so enjoy your time here and buy yourself something nice if that's what you want to do and you're going to put it to work. So I appreciate it. Thanks for watching, guys. Be safe and good luck.